Does he have a link?
Yeah, yeah, he is. Yeah,
Has he chimed in yet?
no, he is not chimed in.
But he's leaving, right?
I have to go at 12:30.
So yeah.
I just found out.
So I'm waiting for Adele to chime in. So we'll, yeah. So then when he leaves, definitely.
I'll take your.
Does he know? I think that's why we're getting the link ready, is he's trying to.
So if we have a quorum now, can we start? And then is that how it works?
I guess you can. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're the president. You can.
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Yeah.
And then start.
As long as he's trying
And then
to.
we can let him in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Can you go ahead and start recording for us? Will he be able to chime in when we're recording?
Yes.
All right, awesome.
It is November 2nd. It is November 2nd, 2017, 12:05. We do have, so we call the meeting to order and stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I want to acknowledge that Dr. Brown is joining on via Zoom. We're going to go straight to our consent agenda. We all received our minutes from the September 7th meeting. Are there any questions about the minutes?
Move to approve that. Second.
All in favor of approving the September 7th meeting? I mean, minutes.
Aye.
So the next item is the Innovation Academy District Improvement Plan.
Well, good afternoon, board. I'm going to speak to the district improvement plan, the Tyler campus improvement plan, the Palestine and the Longview, and then we'll have to vote on each one separately. So basically, each year we come together as a team, teachers, community members, parents, administrators, looking at the campus and areas, specific areas. So the specific areas, the goals, basically, there are 7 goals, and within each goal, we identify an activity that aligns with that goal, and basically the person that's responsible for it, the timeline, how we're going to evaluate that we're meeting that goal, and the end of the year evaluation as well. So when we look at the 7 goals, ISDs and charters oftentimes have improvement plans. In fact, it's required of an ISD to have an improvement plan. Based on my understanding, it's not required of a charter, but then oftentimes they reference it in other things, such as special ed and Title I, that we need an improvement plan. So basically with these 7 goals, they cover everything from looking at student academic performance and meeting state standards, to looking at integration of technology into the curriculum, to looking at providing a safe and orderly school environment for students, looking at the partnership between the home and the school to promote a quality educational experience there. Attendance is also one of the goals that we focus on, because we know that attendance is important, both academically to support the child, but financially. Also looking at personal academic goals to support the students, and then maintaining high quality teachers. So if you pulled a traditional ISD schools improvement plan, and you can speak to this as well, most of it is aligned with these goals. What's different is the actual activity that's going to take place. And so for example, in our maintain high quality teachers, it might note something about supporting those teachers through PD that's aligned with project-based learning and problem-based learning. If you looked at our goals with meeting and exceeding state standards, then you're going to see specific activities that are aligned with our model and our system. And so on each one of these, each campus sat down with their design teams as well as other staff members to develop their plans. I will tell you the plans read very similar. What we oftentimes do is develop one plan, and then because if we do, our model is basically our plan. But what we want to do is say, what activities are we actually focusing on this specific school year to support this specific goal? But the goal oftentimes aligns back to our model of the charter, because the charter is required for students to meet state standards because we're a public school. And so again, there's a lot of alignment between the charter as well as our activities and model that we're presenting. And so we develop the plan, and then what we do is we look at how there is some individuality on each campus. For example, in Palestine has the ACE program. So they would have it in their plan where kids are supported through the ACE program through that specific grant, whereas the Tyler and Lone View campus does not have the ACE program. So each director sits down with their design team and they look at what are some things that we can add to this that kind of make it that's unique for only us. Also to note that there is a column that shows semester one evaluation. So what the team will do at the end of the semester one, they will go in and they will basically look at these things. So for example, one activity that I just pulled from provide bullying recognition and prevention training to students, staff, and parents. They will go in semester one and evaluate, are we doing that? Or is that something that we still have left to do? If we did do it, do we feel like it met the needs? And did it also meet the needs of our goal? And then we'll do an end of the year evaluation for every plan and for the district and all three campuses. Any specific questions?
I can't remember, as far as safeguards, did we meet all the safeguards last year?
That's a good question.
Because the traditional ISD has to address any safeguards they missed in the plan. So
You're right. I think that, and I wish Ron's out.
Yeah.
We all, pull it up. I think we all met all safeguards. If we didn't meet it, it would be one maybe at the district level. So that's a good point, that I'll have to look that up, but I cannot remember if, so Palestine met Tyler. Did y'all meet all your safeguards, Dennis?
I think there was one safeguard that we.
Was it SPED?
No,
Did you meet your
I think
SPED
I
safeguard?
go with,
Pull that up to see, because that's definitely something that we could address in the plan as well. In fact, that's why schools have to have it, because they're required to address it if they don't have the safeguards.
And so that the board that is not familiar with CASE, even though we approve it, a company improvement plan is a living document. So even though we approve it, they really have the authority to change it to address the needs of the.
Is it possible to share that document with us?
That one?
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta do that.
Did you email it to me? Is that what happened? I apologize.
Yeah, we don't print them because they're really long.
Yeah, one of them. is
Did you
just
get all
And
the
the new
documents?
president doesn't like a piece of paper.
Any other questions? Great point that these are documents that they can revisit at any time. So it really looks at, for example, if we felt like there was an issue with us not meeting academic performance, we would meet as a team and decide what do we need to do to support that. Then we would go to our campus improvement plan and say, okay, let's add this to our campus improvement plan so that we can meet this goal of meeting the needs of students' academic performance so they do meet standards. So you do tweak it as you go throughout the year if needed.
Any questions? So do we have a motion to approve the district improvement plan? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the Tyler campus improvement plan?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve the Palestine campus improvement plan.
Make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the Palestine campus improvement plan?
Aye.
The Longview campus improvement plan?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
You opposed? Thank you. So now we have a request for approval for the 27 amendment.
I'll look at this page because the pages are a little bit out of order. First thing is we need to receive a little bit more federal funds than expected, so that's what the revenue is. And then we had some expenses that came up in some functions that we had money budgeted for, but it was another function, so we were just cleaning up the functions on those. Is there any questions on the budget amendment?
Last year.
Yes, this is
That's last year, sorry.
Yeah, we're getting ready to begin our audit.
Audit, yeah.
Our auditor will be here probably the week of the 13th.
Yes.
To look at documents, and then of course we usually have all those transactions for her before we leave on Thanksgiving break, and then she starts looking at them over over December, and usually going into Christmas break, we're pretty just much cleaning up any little bits and pieces, moving things around from functions if necessary, and getting all that back from her and proofing it, making sure that we're in agreement with what she's looking at, and then of course we come to y'all in January. So we are beginning our audit process right now for our, we don't foresee any issues, everything looks just like we expect, so
In preliminary, it looks like we'll have our biggest rollover ever.
hopefully, yes. We are looking over some transactions with the university right now to make sure that they have that working correctly.
Is that the only one? Was that the only? Okay.
I would move to approve these budget changes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of the budget amendment? Aye. Any opposed? Now we have all the board policies that need to be approved.
Then hopefully we can go through them by one. We do have to approve them one by one. However, they should not take too long in that it's not the entire section of the policy per se that's necessarily changing. It's usually just bits and pieces within that policy. And keep in mind, most of these you've already approved that whole section once. It's just maybe a change of wording or an addition of a section that's all based off of new legislation that just came due to the new sessions that were in place.
And just to note, we do purchase our policies from the Texas Charter School Association. These are not policies that we read the law and then had to interpret. We basically, they send us the policy edits, and then we have to go in and review them. In the event it is a legal policy, it's legal. In the event that it's a model policy, whereas the traditional IC calls it a local policy, a model policy, we have some flexibility. But oftentimes, it's not that much flexibility because we then refer back to our charter. What does our charter say? So I just want to make that clarification that the information that we actually got or we're making or the changes, we had legal support making those changes.
And the bulk of these are really non-negotiables. A lot of the new law changes, I mean, there's not really any wiggle room for a district to even interpret how to implement it per se. It's really like, this is the law and this is what you have to do. So some of them are, and those we've kind of discussed, and we've kind of gone with what we've been doing in most of those cases. So we're gonna go over each of these and we'll go looking at the change document that I provided. I tried to summarize the best I could for each of those so that you weren't left trying to figure out what was necessarily changing. When you actually looked at the individual policy documents, I basically highlighted the sections. We did not print these for you all again because there's so much paper, but you did receive them in the email. The green highlights are the things that are new or were edited, the verbiage. and what it is that you're really approving that's changed. Anything that was not highlighted is something that's already in effect in our policies that you've all approved. So looking, I guess we'll start with, you want me to go ahead and start
Yeah,
with
go
the, okay, so 400.020, the admissions and enrollment, looking at the change document, section 1.1 contains some new verbiage. They basically have included, they've the list of, for discrimination has changed. They've added, it says race, color, gender identity, or an association with an individual with a disability. That's all new wording and verbiage in that section. Section 2.3 and 2.4, they've basically been updated to include more stringent policies in determining residencies for a charter school to qualify for enrollment because charter schools have the geographic boundary and you set that in your charter. And so previously there wasn't really a strict wording and guidance on what it is you're supposed to be looking for to determine if they're residents. In an ISD, you have a physical geographic boundary, and it is literally you live on one side of the street or the other side of the street. And with us, it's a little broader, and typically it's utility bills and things like that. So 2.3 and 2.4 really go into more strict policies as to what types of things we can look at when determining that. One of the things that I will note, which is kind of nice because we have this situation in our Longview campus particularly, a student does not reside within the geographic boundary stated in the charter, but has a grandparent who does, and who provides substantial amount of after-school care for the student. So that kind of is something that they've added, which gives us a little bit of leeway in some of those kids that who want to come to our school, especially like in the one in Longview, they live outside the geographic boundary, but they work in Longview and the grandparents in Longview. So it allows us to be able to accept those kids. Yeah. So they've added some of that guidance, which wasn't there before.
Is that true for all districts? Is that verbiage is?
This is for charter specific.
Right, but in the public school, I could take students that did not live in our zone if the grandparents were the after-school caregivers.
Yeah, in a ISD, I think they consider them a transfer student, where in our situation, we would just be allowed to accept them.
Okay.
Let's see, they got rid of some verbiage on the 3.1, which basically said in the case of a student who's under Family Protective Services, it used to say until the student successfully completed the highest grade level offered by the charter, and now that's gone. So it used to be that once the kid basically enrolled with you under like a foster status, that even if they moved out of your area, if Family Protective Services and stuff, they basically could stay there forever. And now they've taken that out because I think it's more it gives them the option to move the student to a school that's within their zone or where the foster parents live. A lot of stuff with foster students change because of the new, the ESSA. They used to fall under the McKinney-Vento Act, which was like homeless. Now they don't. They don't fall under that category anymore. Section, let's see. Section 4 and 5 were added to the module. They cover equal education opportunities and sex discrimination in education programs. And so really a lot of that's all new verbiage pertaining to discrimination being prohibited based on special education 504. It gives us rules on how we have to disseminate our policies, that we have to have a coordinator, investigation of complaints, investigation of discipline, sex discrimination in education programs. All of that is basically new verbiage, which has gone into effect. A lot of that's gone into effect at the state level because of the federal changes in federal law. So I think that's for 400.020. Are there any questions on any of the stuff that was? I'm hoping that you read it, and if you had questions, that you got those tabled.
Do we have a motion to approve the changes to the admissions and enrollment board policy?
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the admissions and enrollment changes? Aye. Any opposed?
Moving on to 400.030, this is an entirely new policy section which we did not have in our policies previously. Now that we've purchased buses, it's even more important for us to add this in there. We don't do home to school and school to home Therefore, because we don't do that, we're not eligible for any transportation funding from the state. You have to offer homeschool and school to home to qualify for transportation funding. And so now that we have buses, we've basically inserted this back in there. Basically, it says that we do not offer it. And it basically just establishes that we're under no obligation to offer that. But it also does include sections about homeless and foster care students and the laws associated with transportation of those students that are classified in those categories. And really, it does say that you have to provide appropriate transportation if your student is classified as homeless. We've never had an issue where our students are really actual unaccompanied youth where they don't have a method of transportation, so it's never been an issue for us. If we were to get a student who is an unaccompanied youth and doesn't have transportation, we would have to work something out to provide for that student. In the foster care wording has changed because of their classification going from out from under the McKinney-Vento to being more considered separate under ESSA. There is verbiage there that you do have to provide transportation, but it does allow for us to coordinate with the Department of Family Protective Services and that they can help absorb some of that cost and that you can do like a shared agreement and work with them to determine what needs to happen for that particular student and come up to a reasonable agreement between the two. And so really the whole key here is that one, we don't do home to school, school to home, and that if we do have a homeless or foster student, that we would work to provide transportation within reason.
It's not important, but if there's some grammar, it says the ED is their designee when there's only one ED.
Okay.
So it should be the ED's designee or a designee, not their designee.
Okay. Yeah, that's their wording, but I will
Oh,
look
it
into
is?
it. Yeah. Yeah, this is all, like, I did not edit any of that, but I will look into it.
You see it right here?
Oh, yeah, they is the new singular.
Oh.
Welcome to the new world.
It is.
I like that, it's not correct. There's only one
There's an
ED, so it'd be
OTC
the
there,
ED's designee.
I don't know.
Not
it is-
their
I'm
business.
serious.
I think it's there. It should be they are,
They.
right?
They or
or
they.
No,
they're
they're talking about a person. That
Rather than
or a
ED.
different. Well, that's the way they reference it throughout the entire policy document. Is the ED or their designee through the whole policy document?
No.
Not, I mean, not just
Not
this
that one. On that document, that's the only time they do
Oh,
it.
but I'm
It's
saying
ED,
throughout the whole
right.
booklet.
But it says ED's designee, all, like. all.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll look into it.
It just.
I will
something
look at it.
that is not. Like when the English language learner tells you there's something wrong, it's glaring.
Well, I will tell you that came straight from legal at Charter Association. So, but I will look into it.
No problem. I don't have any issues with the part. I apologize.
Okay, so any questions on student transportation?
No, we have a motion to approve the student transportation.
So moved.
I got you on a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All right, so moving on to 400.050, parent and community. Really, this is an entirely new section, the 400.050 or 050. But it's technically the same wording that you've already approved once. It just used to be in the miscellaneous provision section. They moved it and created its own section. So you'll notice when we look at the document, I just highlighted that, basically saying that the policy, the verbiage is exactly the same pertaining to the parental involvement community. It's just they moved it into this section. And then in addition to what we've already adopted, they've added in two other sections, telephone communication, which is based off of a new law about basically having automated calling systems. If you utilize an automated calling system to like call your kids who are absent, you have to have permission to do that and have a way that they can opt out, because this was really established for communities where people are basically paying for their phones by the minute. They're going and buying those minute plans. And if every time you text them, you're using their minutes, then you're costing them money to call them. So that gives them the option to opt out, because if they're buying a $50 card and that only allows them so much usage and you're using it up, that's the problem. So I don't know that it's so much now with all these new straight talk plans that are unlimited. I don't know that it's as big of an issue as it was when they they probably established this rule, and by the time it made it through everything, they've come up with new solutions. But that's why that is there. And so we do, on our enrollment packet, we do have a section that says, just to let you know, we do use an automated system. You're basically authorizing us to do that, and then they do have an option to send us something else.
That's what I was gonna ask you, when do they have an option, or where do they get?
Yes.
It's on the
And then
enrollment
we
packet.
utilize Remind 101 on our campus. And the nice thing about that is it's something that they have control over canceling. So like if they, we use it for like bad weather and whatnot, it's closed. And so you basically have to initiate the sign up. And then if you just get tired of getting all the messages, you can cancel yourself. So that's kind of a good feature. So really this is more for like the attendance more than anything. So that whole section 2 is basically discussing that. And then section 3 was just a real quick, basically saying that they would make that we can request a digital or electronic signature from a parent or adult. However, a parent, guardian, or adult student must have the option to provide a handwritten signature if preferred. So they're trying to allow us to do a more electronic signature type option. Where before they pretty much said everything had to be in writing.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve? Board policy?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, 400.080. Required instruction and graduation. Section 3.2 pertaining to the TSI and applicable exemptions from Algebra 1, English 1, or English 2 EOC is added. It basically now says that a student enrolled in college preparatory math or English language arts that satisfy the TSI college readiness benchmarks is exempt from Algebra 1 or English 2 end of course exams, even if the student did not perform satisfactorily on previous administration of the applicable. That is a new section to this end of course assessment. Other than that, that is the only change to this particular policy. The verbiage says that a student enrolled in a college preparatory math or English language arts course that satisfies the TSI college readiness benchmark is exempt from the Algebra 1 or English 1 and English 2 end of course exams, even if the student did not perform satisfactorily on a previous administration of the applicable end of course assessment instrument.
That's new law.
We were wondering what it actually meant. We have to go through all the details of ifs and the ifs and the whens and the when it applies, when it doesn't.
Do we have a motion or do we have any questions? Any other questions? Have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. All right, and I think the 400.100 you wanted to put in.
Nardos is our school diagnostician. She supports all 3 campuses in the district at large. And so I wanted to give her an opportunity to first of all introduce herself and then to share with the update regarding her department.
So Chelsea Nardosa, nice to meet you guys. Basically, I just kind of hit my highlights. The first one is, well, it's 400.100 for IDEA, but the new Senate bill is for the special ed cameras, and it's primarily in your self-contained classrooms, which is a student that's in receiving special education services 50% or more of the time. And so really at this point, that doesn't really apply to any classes that we have. It could in the future, but it doesn't. But in the event that we did have that situation, it just kind of lists who can request cameras, how much time we have to get the cameras in place, and when those kinds of, let me go into that detail. Once installed, that you keep it the whole school year, and if you have an extended school year, which we haven't had either, that it has to be in session for that whole year. So it just kind of specifies the areas and who's involved in that process of the cameras. But like I said, at this point, none of our classes in there was just a little minor change to the multi-tiered intervention. And that was just about the parents receiving written notice prior to increasing response to intervention tiers. And that's just, and I just listed like what that means. Like they get a description of the intervention we tried, what we're going to try, what that timeline looks like, how we're going to monitor progress, that kind of a thing. So I just included that. And I wasn't sure.
Is that in the 100 section though? I thought that was in, I thought that was in a separate.
It might have been.
I think that's,
Maybe it's in the next one.
I think that's actually in the
I made a
point 160 miscellaneous provisions where they talk about. the
Okay,
tier
sorry.
intervention. Yeah, no problem. Just make it, I just,
So really, as far as 400.100, that's it. It's just the cameras.
You answered the question I had too. Yep. 400, 100, any questions? No questions? We have a motion?
Make a motion.
Do we have second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, 400.
do you want to do that or you want me to do that?
I wrote it on here, so I can if you want me to. There was just a couple of word changes, and then the contacts for the campus directors and everything was updated. The main area was just putting what was called a diabetes management and treatment plan in place. And that's just identifying what healthcare they need, their level of independence as far as what they can participate in, and then having it signed by the parent and the physician. And then also for students like with EpiPens and things like that, having an individual health plan in place where, again, we determine can they come and do their own medication or injections or anything they need as a result. So that was highlights on that.
And the other piece of that would be the website accessibility, which we have put some of that in place already. Our website does have a new accessibility feature in the top left that allows you to change the color contrasts. You can choose whatever color background you want and text, and you can actually make the text smaller and larger. That's been in place for about a year now. They have outlined here a little bit more stringent things that need to be in place, and so this will go to our tech department. We're actually in the process of looking into some things to overhaul on our website that they're working on, and so they actually sent out a survey to all of us to find out what things we needed to address, and so this will be one of those to add in some of these additional features. And so that basically covers that 110 section.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All right, the 120, 400.120, section 3 was added and applied to administration of the EpiPens, which was kind of semi-addressed already in the other section. It just goes into a little bit more detail as to who could administer the injections, how we go about implementing that policy. There's actually, if you administer an EpiPen, there's a report. You have to actually identify who and what time, and there is reporting associated with that. It has to go to the physician or the person who prescribed the auto injector, the board of directors, the commissioner of education. Basically, they want to know if you've administered an EpiPen, that your bases were covered and that everybody knows you did it, because if something were to come of it, they want to know that it was well documented. And it tells you what the report must include, the storage of the EpiPens, who the authorized personnel are.
Is there a formal training for that?
There-
Those who are designated to do so would go
Yes.
through.
I know that they did training. I think it was 2 years ago. I think all of the staff got it. So the majority of the staff already have it who've been returning, but I think they have plans to do another one to catch the people who are new to the district.
Yeah, and we talked about in the future, in fact, I met with the nurse to say that I'd like it in the future for it to be done at the very beginning of every year, because that was my understanding, that she was it's not that it has to be done face to face. There's so many different, in fact, the training can be done online.
Right.
And
We actually have a link on our website for our staff.
yeah, that they can actually go to, and a parent can go to if they needed to, to reference it as well. But you know, there's so many videos out there that they can watch how to get one, and then the nurse can then be there to support them, as well.
The other two sections in here are about the non-prescription medication, which we already have, we have a form in place that if a parent brings, or sends a non-prescription medication with their student, we have a form that basically they have to fill out, and it stays in the front office and it's administered, to the student. So this is just more formal. And then they also added the sunscreen because, that a student can possess sunscreen because it does contain medicine.
That's a new one.
Yeah, it is, though, yeah, those are both new. So that covers the health section.
You know, something happened for them to have to
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and my guess would be that a kid who probably had an allergic reaction probably had it put on by somebody else that wasn't their sunscreen. That would be my guess.
You guys have a nurse?
We have a part-time nurse that is housed here in the district and supports the campus at large, but her primary role is just compliance. Making sure that she's checking immunization records, making sure that we're in compliance with all the requirements, reports, and then she does the required screening. So she does visit the campuses, the other campuses to complete the required screening, but I'm not in a position to say that we have a full-time nurse that supports students and their needs. Oftentimes that's left up to the campus administrator and the campus admin. And as we get larger, that's something that we probably need to look at, especially as we're bringing in younger students.
Any other questions related to the health work policy? We have a motion,
I would like to make that motion.
we have a second,
Second.
all in favor,
Aye.
any opposed? Thank you. Student safety.
All right, we're getting close to the end. All right, number 0.140 covers student safety. The additions here, really, it almost the bulk of it has to do with sex trafficking and bullying. Section 3 has added sex trafficking to the list. If you look at, I mean, it used to just say awareness of sexual abuse, neglect, and other maltreatment of children, including prevention techniques and knowledge of likely warning signs. They've added sex trafficking into that. It's also provide resources used to implement this policy will include developed by the Texas Education Agency, and the procedure shall include how a child that is a victim of sexual abuse, neglect, sex trafficking, and other maltreatment may obtain assistance and intervention and counseling options available to them. So TEA is putting together more resources for schools because it has become a problem, unfortunately, especially I think in the lower half of the state. So they are trying to help school districts tackle that. The other parts there, it goes into, they just added more of what the executive director shall ensure as far as trainings to regarding that. Now, we've already been doing sexual abuse and neglect trainings at the start of the year. Now they basically want a little bit more training in the terms of determining if if you have signs that a student may be part of sex trafficking and sexual abuse. The reporting of child abuse, all that is basically stayed the same. The one thing that has changed under section 4.2 is they added in a clause that for the registered sex offenders are prohibited from entering school grounds, and there are some exceptions. And they've added the exception that a student enrolled in a school or a student visiting from another school participating in any event at the school. Now, the part where it's a student enrolled in the school, because of our other clauses that basically say discipline things that however, the part that it says a student visiting from another school participating in an event at our school may basically come to light at some point if we ever host other schools. So that is a section that is new based on state law. The under section 5, where it talks about weapons and handgun prohibition, it basically says they've taken out the word concealed. You all know that they did pass the laws where universities have a little bit more open policy on the open carry in some cases, and so it does define the signs that have to be there, which we all put in place back when it first went into effect. So really, this is just putting into writing what we've kind of already implemented, so that all the signs are there. The word concealed has gone away in that there's actually two signs. One says concealed and the other says open carry. So we do have the signs for both 300.06 and 300.07 on all three of our campuses. And then section 8, goes into basically adding a whole lot of new verbiage about bullying and cyberbullying. It adds in terminology about gender and gender identity, and discrimination, harassment, intimidation, bullying. It defines what bullying is. It goes into it basically has a lot of definitions there as to what they consider to be bullying, cyberbullying, harassment. It goes into talking about having methods to prevent and monitor, of which I know that they put in the Stop It apps, which I think we discussed in the last meeting. So we've kind of already changed our policies related to this. Again, it's just putting it into writing what we're doing. I actually have in here the part that I did edit says that we do offer the bullying through the Stop It app, because that's what we've implemented. It gives you a section to say what it is you're doing. It goes into what your code of conduct is supposed to say, and consequences, and basically what we are obligated to do if a student claims that they've been bullied. And that pretty much covers student safety.
Any questions? We have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All right, last one. This one used to have the parent involvement part that moved up to the 050 section. So that disappeared from the miscellaneous provisions, and they have added section 4, which talks about the multi-tiered intervention, which Nardoza touched on. And that's all that they basically did. They took out and moved the parental community, and then added in the multi-tiers, which is basically the RTI.
Any questions? We have a motion.
Make the motion.
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And that is the end of our action items.
All right.
Informational items.
Before I get started on the informational items, I did want to recognize Katie Adams and Tamlin Malden. They're both superintendent interns joining us today. They've had their hands on several of these things that I'm going to be discussing and been very involved in. Just want to let them know my appreciation for them and their hard work. They've been very helpful. So the first item here is playground plans and donations. I just wanted to update the board. We have been working with the university, and we have identified vendors that are in buy board, meaning that they are already approved vendors through the university system. So we have 2 vendors. We've met with both vendors. We have involved the university maintenance and facilities in our meetings, and begin looking at different options. We're looking at options that are good buys. We're looking at options that are that have a high level of capacity, that they meet our age span. So the 2 vendors that we've met with, we should be receiving quotes from them. In fact, we've received 1 quote from 1 vendor, and we're waiting to receive the additional quote from the other vendor. I would share that, but since we are still waiting on the other quotes from the other vendor, I will note that these playgrounds are costing around, anywhere from $40,000 up, and you're not getting a lot for $40,000. Because this is commercial equipment. The installation just alone is, around $8,000 to $10,000. So right now we are looking at purchasing a playground for the Tyler campus and Longview. And depending on facilities, we will move forward with purchasing a playground facility on the Coliseum campus. And looking at the timeline, again, we hope to have our quotes in by the end of the week or first of next week. We have to make a decision because the products that we're looking at are sale products. And so they have to be purchased by the 1st of December. Once we make that purchase, it's around 6 weeks out and 1 week for installation. So my goal is for us to have the playgrounds on both of those two campuses by the 1st of February. We feel like the need for this, even though it is a lot of money, we feel like there is a need to support younger students, to give them an opportunity to play, explore, and just on another note, we did send out seeking donations out to parents in the community, and we have received donations as well. We would put towards 100% of those donations towards that product. So if someone donated from Palestine or Longview or Tyler, their amount will go directly towards that. We're going to look at it in phases. So as we continue to grow, we know that we're going to need to grow those facilities as well. And so phase 1 is basically a very nice climber where students can slide down slides. They can climb up different type of ladders and ropes and have platforms to look over. We're also looking at options to have shade over the climber, as well as having the requirements of the rubber mulch and things. The vendors that we're looking at do understand all the requirements and compliance regulations for our grade span. So when they install, they have insurance, and they will be installing to meet the compliance of the playground compliance laws. So they are familiar with all of those. In fact, they've installed several of those playgrounds in all of the communities that we support. Any questions so far, or any questions that you have? I don't know the exact amount of donations because we haven't received that from the university. Some parents have donated basically by just coming to the school and giving money, and that all flows through the university. So there is a paper trail to be audited, and then some have gone online to donate as well. So hopefully we'll know shortly. But depending on the amount of donations, we'll just be able to allow us to continue to grow. We're looking at the phase 1 of the climbers, the rubber mulch, and the borders. And then we'll move into probably phase 2 of looking at some swings and things like that the older students. The climber that we're looking at right now looks at grades 4-year-olds to 12-year-olds, if I'm correct. I'm very excited about this opportunity. I think it is a need, and we have had parents comment that they're glad to see us look at some opportunities for their students. We have purchased basketball goals on all of the campuses, so we've added those as well. And so we'll continue to add things, and we have purchased some PE equipment and updated all of that throughout the year as well. Any questions on the playground, donations, timeline, cost? Discussion of adding pre-K. So there's been some discussion on looking at, now that we've brought in K through 2nd on the Tyler campus, and depending on facilities, we'll determine whether we bring in the K through 2nd on the Palestine and the K through 2nd on the Longview. Again, now that we feel comfortable with the K through 2nd here in Tyler, we feel that we could, if the facilities allow for it, to add the K through 2nd. We all know that impacts enrollment across the board. Very few people bring their kid to 3rd grade, and so that's only going to help our situation when we continue to grow as a school. So the justification on pre-K is that looking at opportunities that I've met with several different superintendents of charter schools, and one advantage of having that pre-K is it's what's best for kids. We know that if kids can be enrolled in an educational environment, they become stronger leaders, stronger academically. Having the opportunity to support students at a younger age and then transition them into our kindergarten would only help us. It also helps with enrollment, because basically you have a group of kids in pre-K that will likely transition into kindergarten. So then when you have parents that come in and they have an interest in kindergarten, you may already have one section of kindergarten filled. So now you're able to open up another section. So what that allows you to do is to build your capacity of students. Now you're likely probably going to roll in 2 sections of kindergartners, and then roll up 2 sections of, then you'll have 2 sections of 1st grade. It allows you to be bigger. or it supports that. It doesn't guarantee anything. I will tell you that the charters I have visited with, it's either there's ones that have done it, they're glad they did it. The ones that have no interest in it, they have no interest in it. I'm going to tell you that meeting with my leadership team today, they're very split. Some of them have an interest in bringing in pre-K, and then some of them, and I would say probably very few of them do. I don't have anything to hide. And then some of them are like, well, maybe in the future. I even proposed maybe even looking at bringing in just pre-K here in Tyler. The way that I understand it is that you look when you have a lottery, you lottery for when we lottery in April, we will lottery for the 18-19 school year and the 19-20 school year for that kindergarten class. And so then that 19-20 school year kids, you offer them an opportunity to go to pre-K. Again, it's an opportunity for us to grow. To me, it's more of a recruitment strategy and an academic support level that you can, again, support students at an earlier age. There's research behind that. Everybody knows that. I will tell you too, we have here in Tyler specifically, we have charter schools. Two of our biggest charter schools are partnering with other daycare facilities. And so, for example, Cumberland Academy partners with Oak Hill Montessori. So that partnership basically allows them, those pre-K kids often roll right into Cumberland. Classical Academy partners somewhat with Stepping Stone. So those Stepping Stone kids roll right into Classical Academy. Tyler is so big, I don't have that partnership yet. And again, there's a lot of the daycares that already do have the partnership. Now, there are church daycares here in Tyler that they will allow us to come in and give the parents information about our school and things like that. So this is really a discussion item. I would like to see it, and I will tell you I have a personal interest. I don't want that to be any gray area or anything. I have a 3-year-old, and I know there's several teachers and parents that also are teachers and parents that also have 3-year-olds. This would be an opportunity for us to support those kids, then roll them over into kindergarten, have that kindergarten basically full before we even start, and then you're able to bring in another kindergarten. And if you look at our numbers, that's where you're going to grow. And I think that you're going to have 2 sections. In my mind, I think you're going to have 2 sections all the way up to high school to get to 1 section. Does that make sense? Because what you're seeing on our attendance chart is if you look at 8th grade, we have 83 in the district and it drops to 56. So right now we have 83 8th graders, but we only have 56 9th graders. So what's happening is that those students between 8th and 9th are making a decision whether to continue at the Innovation Academy or to go into another high school at an ISD or private school. And there's justification for both of those, for those choices. My philosophy is that if you can have 2 sections of kindergarten, first, second, if your facilities ever allowed it, then likely that would eventually go down to 1 section. I could be wrong. But I think if you keep 1 section, your 1 section of 22, 25 kids will likely go down to maybe 12, 13. Just because, again, until we're in a position to offer the fine arts, the athletics, the social opportunities for kids, I just think you're going to see that number. And then also the level of rigor that we require from our students.
So a question. So in a regular public school, students have very specific criteria to enter into pre-K because the state doesn't pay the regular way that you pay. So my question would be funding, and would you have that same criteria, or could anybody come? Because generally, for those of you that are not aware of Texas law, they have to be English language learners, they have to be economically disadvantaged, homeless, foster kids, and military. So to qualify for free pre-K. So like in my former district, we didn't have pre-K for our own kids. Like now they have pre-K, but if you don't qualify, then you have to pay to attend the public schools pre-K program. So right. So how?
So this is what we've been told, and again, we have met with charter school. When I say we, several individuals in here, we've met with charter school superintendents to have a pre-K, and then we've also met with the charter school legal. Based on what they shared with us, and ladies, please correct me if I'm not getting this all correctly, because it's been very hard to understand. Based on what they tell us, in April, we have a lottery. If we decide we want to have a pre-K, then we have a lottery for our 18-19 school year and our 19-20 school year. If we need a lottery, you only have a lottery if you're overbooked. So if we have, let's say, 12 kids that decide they want to be a part of our kindergarten class for the 19-20 school year, then we wouldn't need a lottery. Those 12 kids would just automatically be accepted. And then it's my understanding you offer those kids pre-K. Whether they qualify or don't qualify, that's not determining it. That's not a determining factor because you're accepting them as a kindergartner. You're just offering a pre-K program to support them academically.
Which I think it would be great for enrollment, because who doesn't want a free pre-K, you know?
Now, and that's something that
that's not the same.
Yeah, and that's something that we would have to talk about as well. If currently teachers, parents, or excuse me, the children of teachers get first priority, and if that's the case, then would we want to look at, because we will not get funding if so we have a pre-K. Let's say that my child doesn't, and I'm going to use my child for example, my child doesn't qualify for the requirements under the pre-K, state pre-K. So, but my child's in the lottery and is accepted because let's say we didn't have to have, or accepted because I'm a faculty member. So he's automatically accepted. So then he would automatically, because he's accepted, he would have the opportunity to go to the pre-K. But my child, we would not get funding for my child. So we can do one or two things. We could say that as an employee, you have to pay a partial rate, or you can say as an employee, you're exempt. But as a parent, if your child's accepted to the pre-K, they could actually pay a certain amount. Again, those are all things that would have to be decided that we would have to discuss, and we can discuss that at a later time. My position is this something we even want to explore? And if we do explore it based on what what I hear from the directors, let's kind of look at it the same way. Let's have a pre-K just maybe here in Tyler this year for next year, and then if we look at additional pre-Ks and we have the facilities, then we could look at Longview and Palestine. Because basically, if we have the facilities next year, we hope to bring K1 in Palestine and K1 in Longview, if the facilities allow. So next year, I would like to see pre-K 12 on Tyler, K 12 on Palestine, K 12 on Longview. Again, depending on the facilities in those two locations. The downfall is you're not going to, pre-K is going to cost you, especially if you have faculty members, children that are in pre-K and you're not charging them. But I tell you that is a recruitment effort as well. Cumberland Academy, ours basically chartered here in Tyler, they have a daycare. So their staff members, there's a full daycare on their facility. So their staff members are able to send their children to daycare for free. The advantages of that, likely if they're probably in daycare and they're in your system, they're going to retain that teacher, because that teacher's likely not going to go elsewhere, or maybe they will. But again, that's just their way of supporting their family, their community, their students.
Can I ask you a couple things?
Yes, ma'am.
So when do you need to know something to put the law? When is your deadline for needing to know something to move ahead?
We will have to put in an expansion amendment, and have they sent the timeline out for that?
The expansion are always
You can-
February to March. It's like February and March.
So they have talked about allowing you to do expansion amendments at any time.
Okay.
But right now, currently it's February to March, that we actually put in an expansion amendment. We would ask for the expansion to add pre-K. It would be to add it for all 3 campuses, but that doesn't mean necessarily you have to add it.
Yeah.
It's just in your amendment.
Okay, that's good. So then, so for the other campuses, is it possible to find a partner?
Well, that's what I was gonna suggest,
Yeah.
and even say, probably from Palestine area, I think you could have a partnership that would easily be available. In fact, I can tell you right now, it is being promoted in some of the daycares. And I'm aware of a pre-K that they're strongly encouraged to check out IA. And that would even welcome staff and presentations to be done there.
And what I'd like to do is to explore, and I'm open to that, to explore how some of the charters are, because are those students automatically lottery? What I'm wondering is, let's say, Danny, that there's let's say we partner with a pre-K in another area or in one of our communities. Then if that's the case, do those students do they go ahead and apply? And is that Innovation Academy's pre-K? Is that partnership that strong, or is it just basically it's just an encouragement? Like I can go to daycares. I can call daycares right now. I can call Stepping Stone, and I can ask Stepping Stone, can I present to your pre-K parents when you'll have your presentation on and talk to them about Innovation Academy? That there are schools that allow us to do that, as well as pass out brochures to talk about Innovation Academy. But there's something more about this actual partnership where the students at Montessori roll over into Cumberland Academy. So I don't sure how the funding it works. I really don't know enough about that.
It's probably an MOU, would be my guess, with them that they somehow support them.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it'd be worth exploring. And the other thing is, with Palestine, we don't have the kindergarten and first grade at this point. So I think if that were to come on board, then obviously I think there's a discussion that could be had as to how much is this considered a true partnership with Innovation Academy? Is this preschool looked at as a connecting point of Innovation Academy?
Absolutely.
So there's rollover, and I think the door's open for that.
Okay. And I definitely know that there are schools that have that. So there is something that the state has allowed for certain entities to partner with charters to roll those kids over. Now, I
That
just
might
don't
be a question
understand.
we take to legal and say,
Yeah.
if we developed a partnership where the pre-K is really on them and we're just supporting them, maybe with a staff member, but still the compliance and the implementation on their end, can we somehow in an MOU say that those students are immediately rolled into? And from a compliant, if they say, yeah, then really that would be an ideal
From a
solution.
financial standpoint, it's beautiful because you're not inheriting all these. Yeah, you've got another institution that's taking care of
And they
that.
might allow that for you to just make a partnership with them and have that
Yeah.
immediately rolled.
I like I said, I would definitely look into it. I think there is too advantage of, when parents can drop off their kids at the same place, same location, there's an advantage there. So that having them close by, there's advantage. But again, this is a discussion item. I just wanted to see what the board thought about us even exploring pre-K, if they even are in agreement for us to look at pre-K. And then in the event if we do look at pre-K, how do we want to look at, do we want to have it partially paid? Now, if the child qualifies, then they qualify. You get funding for that child.
Half a day.
Half a day, correct. And so then looking at if we go a full day pre-K, just like for that basically, the kids would get out at the same time as our regular kids.
You have to report you have to report that them for their state funding, so they give you your half, and then you also have to report to them how are you funding their other half. They want to know that they're going full day, and how are you financially supporting them to go all day. So that is
But they don't consider that a full day, from my understanding. They don't consider our 8 to 2:10 a full day.
4 hours is considered a full day.
I was going to ask, is it
Are you sure?
12?
No, 6 hours, right?
Even for pre-K?
Oh, okay.
So we
Well, but still, that's still
6
over 6 hours.
If they go from 7:55 to 2:15, it's over 6 hours.
That's the same timeline when it was with you.
I just can't remember how did we get into that when we talked about it? You remember that we said that, anyway, those are all details.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of details,
A lot of money.
yeah. It
Yeah,
is,
the materials you have to.
I mean, materials, safe space, bathrooms. I can't, maybe separate entrances. I don't know. I mean, not that I know, I don't. But I mean, babies are like a whole other thing.
Same with the compliance on the daycare. And
Not
how the
necessarily
partnership-
infants. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
I think you should explore and, be able to answer all the questions of it.
okay. We'll definitely look at it and kind of just talk through.
justification seems smart. I mean, if the impediments aren't so overwhelming.
Well, what we talked about, that if we did bring in the pre-K here in Tyler, that we could actually house those students separate. So we would look at maybe housing that pre-K and that kindergarten off to the side. And even talked about even having maybe their lunches in the classroom. And so that they don't have the opportunity, they don't have to go to the lunchroom, and then just kind of have theirs more self-contained. That was just a thought.
Thinking of didn't the university talk at some point last year? And I delete those emails because they give it babies anymore. But
There were emails.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's also. So I don't know if that would be something to even look at the the campus here.
I know there were
Partnership
emails
with
about
the-
it.
Yeah, and another opportunity is that if we say all faculty members, they get their child, that their child can come here free, then if that does extend to the university faculty members, trying to recruit more university faculty member students, that might be one, way to do that. Because I know of 2 or 3 people that I had shared with, hey, what if I got pre-K? Would you let your child come? And again, they're more open to it, yes, because it's free. And then if they see that we have a great environment and support their child, then it's likely that child may roll over.
So that might be something to explore. Like if the university's already thinking about funding this pre-K, why not link it to, the Innovation Academy?
Again,
It's a different animal, Palestine, Tyler.
oh, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And so again, it's not something we have to make a decision on today. Just wanted you to know that I am looking at it. I'm exploring different options. I think what I hear now is let's explore options from looking at both lenses. One where we partner with maybe a pre-K daycare, because there was something about if the child goes. There was a school that brought in 2 separate pre-Ks, and the other half day was funded through the daycare. So they brought in, had one teacher. The teacher taught pre-K from 8 to 12, and so the school got funding for a half day. Then she brought in a second group of kids, and she switched with the daycare and the school teacher taught those kids, and so then the daycare got the funding. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The school actually got a full day's worth of funding because they service 2 sections of kids. Does that make sense?
As far as for the teacher.
So, but the reason that they did partner with the daycare is because they didn't want to have to follow all the daycare requirements. So they wanted to be able to just switch those kids and basically switch classrooms.
Let's consider.
Yeah.
Well, your kids don't, your parents don't pick your kids up without your dog, pick your kids up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. So the overview of A through F accountability, Mr. Weaver got sick, and we're going to present that at a later date. I'm going to jump down to the National School Lunch Program, the local food program, just to kind of give you an update. I am looking at 2 options. Currently, we buy into the National School Lunch Program. What that means is that we get a partial reimbursement for what we serve, whether a reduced rate or free, we get reimbursed. So a kid that is free, we get a certain reimbursement. A kid that's reduced rate, we get a certain reimbursement. And right now we just serve breakfast because we have to, because we have over 10% at risk population. The breakfast is nothing to celebrate. In fact, I'm not making really anybody happy because the breakfast we're serving is basically just meets the national school guidelines and is a granola bar with a packaged fruit and a milk. We're serving very few students and we're losing about $6,000 to $8,000 a year on just serving what we serve. Because we have to serve that, but we don't have enough kids buying it to offset the cost. And then we have to buy in such large quantities that oftentimes we end up throwing it away because it expires or whatever. And then also we pay a person part-time for half day. She's full-time, but she's half day on basically her job is just trying to meet the requirements of all of the National School Lunch Program, paperwork and accountability and documentation. So I visited a couple charter schools recently, and they decided to opt out of the National School Lunch Program. And with visiting with them, what they have done is now they have a local funded program, and they said that they're for the very first time they're actually in the black on their program. So a local funded program means that you do not partake in the National School Lunch Program. You don't receive reimbursement from the state. Please note, you still have to support those students that are free and reduced lunch. So the school still has to, in the event that a kid is free and reduced, the school still has to provide them a lunch. In the event that we have a lunch program, they still have to provide them breakfast because we have to have a breakfast program because we have over 10%. Looking at the options, some of the schools that I visited with, they are partnering with, like, for example, Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A brings in Chick-fil-A sandwiches for the students. Chicken Express. They partner with some type of restaurant to bring in hot food that is basically in a box, and the teacher just passes it out to the kid that chooses to buy into the hot lunch program. Doesn't say you have to buy into it. If you don't want to buy into it, you continue to bring your lunch. We kind of discussed it back and forth. I have here on the Tyler campus met with the director of food services over at the university. And so we have talked about options there that in the event they partner with us, that they would deliver those meals to us. We've talked about even, and want to get your opinion on this, what if we bused our 8th through 12th grade students over to the Met to let them eat? And that was something that we talked about with the director, and she was very open to that because that's less food handling. They don't have to bring it over here, serve it. That also allows us 2 cafeterias here in Tyler. Bottom line, every campus is different, and that's something we're learning as we continue to grow. Every community is different. We have food trucks right now that service students outside of the Longview campus, but they can't service our students because we're under the National School Lunch Program unless we do some type of incentive. But if we weren't under the National School Lunch Program, we could even have an incentive for 11th to 12th graders to go out there and eat from the food truck. And they might even continue to grow that food truck, the opportunities there. We've played with the numbers. This is something you opt into by campus. So Powassan has our largest free and reduced lunch population, and so we could maintain the Powassan campus under the National School Lunch Program.
Is that profitable? Is that, if you were just to do that campus alone, because you said we were in the red as a district, is that correct? Mm-hmm. But if it were just the Powassan, is it not profitable?
Because you're even limiting the amount of food you're going to buy. Okay. I mean, you're saying I'm only going to buy for Powassan, where I was buying for Powassan, Tyler, and Longview. And when you buy it in bulk, lots of times. You still have to have a person that's going to. That's not even that person's half-time salary part that you're going to have. She still has to do the same paperwork, whether she's doing it for Tyler, Longview, or Powassan.
The difference being that on the having to pay for free and reduced kids, because the percentage is so high there, you'd have to pay for 30% of the population there to have the free and reduced.
Yeah. Now, one thing that there's really 2 options here. I feel strongly that we need to look at offering food for our students. I think that in my visit to charters, I'm embarrassed to say I'm the only charter that I know of that's not offering a lunch that I've visited so far. And in talking with the Texas Charter School Association, I don't know that they could mention anybody else that doesn't offer lunch. So we're getting large enough, we need to look at some opportunities to offer lunch. I mean, 700 plus students and continuing to grow. I don't have one, I'm not sold on one way or the other. I'm telling you, there's only two options. There's only the option of the National School Lunch Program and the option of the local funded program. The local funded program, if the kid is going to purchase, it's expensive. You know, you're talking about, we're nothing set, but, you know, probably $4 for a lunch. Whereas a traditional ISD, it's $2.50, $3 is what we pulled up and looked at today. You just can't get a company to want to deliver 150 lunches for $2. I mean, I don't know any company out there that I could work with. Now, here on Tyler campus, we talked about that if we did bus our 8th through 12th grade students over, we might could look at doing a meal voucher for those students, and those students are able to basically be at the cafeteria, choose what they want, maybe a one-time stop, and have lunch, and then bus them back. But that doesn't, again, you have your other two campuses that they don't have that opportunity.
So if they went to the Met, would they open the cafeteria for them before it opens to, or they?
That would be all details that we would have to work out. We talked about that our kids would come early. She said her busy time starts about 11:30, 11:45, so our kids would be started at 11. In the event that we did that. Now, I presented to her, what if they worked with us? What if they brought the meal over to us and then we handed it out? Again, based on my conversations today, it all comes down to cost. We ran the numbers. It's going to cost, if a parent wants to buy into this month's lunch program, hot meal, it's going to cost that parent about $85 per child for the month. And that's the comments I get. That's a lot of money. And would a parent buy into that
month?
For the whole month? It's about, what do we say? $4.
$4 is around $90, I think, and it was like $3.50, it's like 80 something.
And then we talked
And then of
about
course it depends on how much we're paying for the meal, on what we would have to turn around and charge. You know, part of the problem is you're paying students we have to essentially make a little bit of profit on the paying student to help pay for the subsidize the kid. You know, and like on the housing campus, that being more so. And one point that Becky brought up was that if they are part of the free and reduced lunch program, then that's your 30%. And she was saying like the other 70% may not even be able to, even though they don't qualify for this, they still may not be able to afford that.
Right.
So that they're in the middle.
Yeah, they're barely over the poverty.
Yeah,
line.
they're barely over
Most
the
families
not
have
qualified.
multiple children. That, in my mind, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and we
Multiple
talked
children,
about that.
barely over the poverty
So again, two options. There's companies out there all over that basically will meet the school guidelines and they'll deliver a meal. I'm just telling you, the kids are not, based on my visits to other charter schools, the only kids they're serving are the kids that are under the free and reduced lunch population, and they're in the they're in the red even more. You're not going to make money, so I guess the question is here, how much money is it worth losing to feed more kids and make them happy? The university doesn't even want to play if we're under all the guidelines. I mean, it's not, because the Met doesn't prepare food the way the National School Lunch Program requires them to prepare food. I mean, you're talking about very little sodium. For example, if this is a pre-K student and this is a 9th grader, the amount that they get, the options that they get, whether it's self-serve, self-select, it's crazy. Even our vending machines right now are under the National School Lunch Guidelines. So the vending options are under the requirements. If we're not under the National School Lunch Program, our vending requirements are not even, I mean, we can do whatever we want in vending machines, or basically
Right now
what
we
we
have
feel
only
comfortable
water.
with.
But whatever we do, we have to do district-wide. We can't do
No,
individual. We
no.
can do individual campuses.
We can keep Palestine under the National School Lunch Program,
Gotcha.
and I could look at bringing in a company to provide them. I've got one in mind. you will probably, you'll still lose money, but you won't lose as much.
Right.
And then the other two schools, we could try it. Even the directors, they mentioned, what if we tried it and we did maybe just 2 days a month? Now, one thing that we've talked about, it's got to be all or nothing. If this is the menu for this month, you either buy into it or you don't, because it's so hard to be able to determine which kid is going to eat
Daily.
which kid daily.
Yeah, that's tough.
And so that was the suggestion that was brought up this morning. What if we just said, okay, looking at that. Then we talked about sending out a survey to parents, and having parents say, what is your thought if we were to look at options for lunch? I'm just thinking if we could build our lunch program, then our breakfast program, we might could build it up, and then we eventually, if we get option kids like, they're going to buy them. Right now, nobody's happy. The kids that I'm giving a free breakfast to are not happy, their parents are not happy, and the kids that I'm not feeding are not happy. So we're losing money making nobody happy. So thoughts, ideas, suggestions?
I think it's a good discussion. I think each campus needs to evaluate what is going to be best for them, and then take a look at it and present the numbers. show where is it going to be, which one's going to cost us the most, and then and I'm just throwing this on the table, but I like the idea of maybe doing it a couple of days and then having the option to. But I do think you're right in suggesting that they make a commitment, maybe for a time frame, so we can measure it.
So just a note, we've already bought into the National School Lunch Program, are committed to it for this school year. So this is nothing that can take place until for next school year. So that's why we're having these conversations now. Everything like from pre-K to the National School Lunch Program. These are all things that could take effect for next school year. So
Applications are due in July, so a decision would have to be made. I think they're due July 1st, so a decision would have to be made so we know not to apply for that campus.
So what we will do, we'll continue to look at options. I'll contact a couple of the vendors that I've received information on, and kind of get an idea of, okay, how much would this cost us? And then look at, I'm supposed to hear back from the university, so that would impact Tyler. And then probably what I'd do is look at some options with the other two, with the Long Beach side, to see if there's anybody there that might be interested. So again, every campus is very different, but I think we're doing a disservice right now.
It's good to look at it for sure. It's good.
The other thing that is, let's see, facilities, just to kind of give you an update on facilities. I'm leaving right after this board meeting to go to Palestine. There is a new property there is a new property that's come on the market. The university is interested in looking at it, so we're going over this afternoon and looking at it. And in the event, I think that if it was a purchase, and they would look at what grades that they would bring in there. The facility is very large, so it would be able to support large numbers, even though it's not in our largest community. I'm also working with a representative at the university, looking at options for facility funding. Based on my understanding, the university really wants to look at brick and mortar campuses for all three campuses. And so, where to start? I mean, do we look at bringing in a vendor to build us a school and they lease it to us and we pay them over 30 years? Or do we look at borrowing money from the system and paying them? There's so many different options for us to explore. And so I just wanted to update the board on that. And depending on, when I talk about facilities and grades, it's all going to be really dependent on Palestine. Because if we go into purchases, if the university agrees to purchase this, then you have a campus that would house K through 12 easily, pre-K through 12. In the event that we do that, then we have modular facilities that we can move to Longview. Those then could house your pre-K through, or your K through second. One of them could be brought here as well. They're both brand new. One could be brought here, and that could house your additional pre-K if you wanted to. But in fact, Tyler actually has room for their pre-K here already, because we're not at capacity as far as facilities. So, but if that's not a go, then both of those two modulars stay in at Mathis Hall, or the one new one's brought in. And in that case, we probably don't have the room to bring in, we don't have the room to do anything in Palestine, if that's the case. And we probably don't have the room to do anything in Long Beach. So again, when I talk about all these different grade spans and options and campuses, it's all going to be really dependent on facilities. Criteria for superintendent's evaluation.
Well, we're all returning, so I wanted to explain it. So I'll send an email to the new board members, but we're gonna do it the same way we did last year, where I sent out the Qualtrics survey for you guys to share input about Dr. Simmons' work, and then I'll complete it and have it for a closed session in the January meeting. I
But
saw
it
that
has
email.
to be due, now it has to be done.
So
in-
what Dr. Hickey doesn't know if that applies to you, because I emailed him as soon as I saw it. I'm like, does that mean we? Because the funding, like you're not paid with university money, you're paid with. So he said, we'll look into it. If
Okay.
not, I can.
Okay.
We could do it like last year.
We can call it special, we can call it
Right.
special session in December.
Just for
Yeah.
Okay.
So use your uttia.org emails to communicate.
All right, it's been a very long day, a long meeting. I do appreciate it. Is there any other questions?
Can I graze over the budget real fast?
Yes, yes.
Financial updates. The second page of your packet is the budget. This is what it's pretty much gonna look like for 16-17. The amendments that you just approved are gonna take care of the functions that you see are upside down. But this is what it's gonna look like for the year unless our auditor makes any drastic changes, but the numbers should be set for 16-17.
Any other questions? And just one other item that I just noticed, you do have your breakdown in attendance or enrollment as well. That's on the very last page. And that's where I was talking to the point where if you look at that 8th grade, and even we talked about it today, from 8th grade to high school, that's where you're losing your numbers. If you look across the other grade stands, they're all very strong, but not in your second and third. Again, it's hard to justify a parent bringing in a child at 2nd grade. So those are small numbers. But you look at your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th are all very strong. If that makes So total right now at the district is 700, and then you can see your attendance rates. Any other questions? Thank you.
We're adjourned.
All right, if you want to stop that.
Don't we have to vote?
Oh, yeah.
You want to second? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Let's make a motion.
I got yours.
Second.
Amen. Yeah.
Aye.
Before everybody leaves, I do have